Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
Cue your trusty road trip mobile. Now cue the insurance it deserves. Of our planet, they do laboratory experiments, they interact, and that the moon as a machine is the device in which all of this monitoring is done.
Hi, Di. Hi, Phil. Good to see you guys. This looks interesting. You know, I believe in a secret space program.
I had been told that the moon was hollow, that the moon had computers on the inside, that for literally millions of years it has been a machine that orbits our Earth, and that non-humans through computers and through androids and clones and all kinds of artificial intelligence, there are monitoring systems of our planet. They do laboratory experiments, they interact, and that the moon as a machine is the device in which all of this monitoring is done. It was
I've never heard an in-depth discussion on this. This looks interesting.
only a couple of years after I had done the documentary A Strange Harvest for the CBS station in Denver, that a man who was working with an abductee came to me and said, I'm working with a man, he's going to go to Peru. He has had
Hey, Shawnee,
interactions
good to
with
see
gray
you.
beings and a variety of beings. And he says they have shown him through some hologram, as well as told him that our moon is a machine, that it is hollow, that it is filled with what we would call computer equipment.
I do know when a meteor hits the moon rings like a bell for a couple of hours. I knew that.
And that it has been used as a monitoring and manipulation station by non-humans of their laboratory experiment of Earth for millions of years. And I can still remember how I felt
Okay, so this has got nothing to do with Christianity.
as this man was sitting across from me. He had an engineering background, and he was working with the abductee because the abductee had had some information that caught the engineer's attention at a technology level. So I've always thought back that that was the first time that I was exposed to this idea. As time went on, I have talked with people who have worked in government intel agencies on what is called the alien presence problem. And a couple of times when I've said, I've been told by an abductee that the moon is a machine filled with computers. It watches, observes, downloads, uploads information to someone somewhere else in the universe. Twice, people who would be CIA and NSA have said, it's absolutely right. And then when you say, can you give me more details? You can't get anything more than that the moon is a machine.
Sounds muffled. Gee, hang on.
I don't know if there's anybody on the moon or not. I have a gut suspicion there is. Do you know we have a society set up to preserve all the landing sites of the moon? Now you think about that. What if you own the moon? You live there. Did anybody bother asking you that? Do you know, I have a theory like everybody else.
Does it still sound muffled?
I think I know why we got tossed off the moon. And it's not that deep state conspiracy thing, it's really pretty simple. Do you know how much junk we left on the moon? 200 tons, 400,000 pounds. There's 96 bags of feces laying up there. Astronauts had to go somewhere. They just toss it out. So imagine you littered 400,000 pounds of junk all over the surface. You're
Yeah, and even he's barely enunciation his words, right?
coming to stay there permanently, and you haven't even got there yet. You put nearly 500,000 pounds of junk on the moon. So if you own the moon and we're up on your roof, what's your opinion about that? You would walk out there and tell us, take some pictures, gather up a few rocks, and then get off our damn moon. Don't ever come back here, you bunch of pigs. I think we got thrown out for littering. So my first proposal, if I make contact, apologize for the mess, be willing to go pick up 400,000 pounds of junk and bring it back. You know what you do with all the junk? You go to Sotheby's. You auction it off. You pay for the entire program. What would people pay for 96 bags of feces? A bunch. So anyway, you clean up the moon and then get off on the right foot. Ask permission. What can we do or not do? It's their own. But we'll find out. I don't know if there's anybody there or not, but I want to go and find out.
I don't know a single person who could tell you, me, anyone, who precisely has territory with computers downloading, uploading. When you go to people who have say that they have actually been on the
Look at her, she's wearing a Star Trek top. Look at that.
moon and have dealt with something of an alien presence, whether they were photographing from a LEM or whatever, they will say they know that there are grays. They know that there's something else. If I were asked, what is the biggest significant change in the last 40 years about?
It's actually them that are muffling. It's not very well enunciated.
The whole issue of an alien presence, who are they and what is the agenda and where are they from? This is a big evolutionary change. If you go back to Betty and Barney Hill, New Hampshire, 1961, it was the first human abduction case to make a TV series. Odd graves. Betty Hill did drawings. They were not the classic pear-shaped heads. They were not the classic pointed chins like Whitley Strieber. And she said they told her that in the realm of alien intelligence interacting with the Earth, they were renegades.
There's such strange anomalies with the moon. I could go for days. For instance, a very simple thing you can do on the blackboard. I can show you math.
The moon is the only celestial body that doesn't rotate like the sun and that does. The moon completely faces Earth, and that's all it does. So it's the only one in the universe that does that. Does that. So something's got to be going on there.
Thematically, the Earth does not have the mass a satellite big as the moon. If you look at the two moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, they look like Idaho potatoes. And that they're relatively correct in proportion to size that Mars could capture such moons. Look at the size of our moon. You can take the continent of North America and put it on the face of the moon. So times 2. That's a huge area. And that brings us to another topic. People go, why do you want to go back to the moon? We've already been there. We know what's there. Like hell you do. If you take all the square footage and square area that the lunar rovers did in the 6th landing, put it together, it's not even the size of the Mall of America with its parking lots. Now put that on the continent of North America, it's just a dot, times 2. You haven't even explored 1/2 of 1% of the moon. You have no idea what's up there. So it's ludicrous that somebody would say, oh, we've already been there and explored that. You have not. And that's why we need to go back to the moon. And there's another project of my first 7. And once I get there, whether somebody's living there or not, we'll get through that part. Next part is start mining helium-3. And I've already laid
Hey,
out
boy, good to see
a
you.
detailed project that has taken me 4 decades to work out. And I shared this with China 30 years ago. Where is China right now with the moon? They're on the backside mining helium-3. It's my devices they're using. But that's okay. At least they did me a favor. I know I went from theory to fact. My stuff works. I didn't know the little boogers would go up there and mine the moon, but they did. Now, God bless them. Good for them. But there's enormous amounts of helium-3 on the surface of the moon, and definitely want to get hold of that. And I can bring that back and feed it into my reactors. And you'll want to do so because if you study helium-3, what it would do with fusion and fission reactors up here in the present state that they're in now, their efficiency would about quadruple, and radiation levels would drop tremendous. And that's not even counting the other reactors I'm building. I got 2 reactors. One is a thorium reactor, and the other is a fusion container. So it's a multi-level program that I have running. I'm careful about telling you things. If I tell you something, it's because I've had my hands on it. I've touched it. I work in labs and build things. So very much a touchy-feely, researcher for it. I have looked at some of the photos of the structures on the moon. I can't say conclusively what they are, but I will tell you this. They're like crop circles. They're real, and they definitely warrant serious looking at and returning to. You got a big tower out there. You got an arch, like the St. Louis Arch. But these structures are huge compared to ones on Earth. You got a thing that looks like a moon base. Looks like somebody took a Galaxy class ship from Star Trek and slid it into home and threw dirt up around it. That's the moon base. I don't know what that is, but let's go see. Some of the structures.
The craters in the moon, they don't look like they were caused by a meteorite. It looks like the moon's like a pancake. When you cook a pancake, all the bubbles come through the pancake. Because there's no way it's the craters in the moon are from UFO, from meteors. Because if they struck the Earth, there'd be if they struck the moon, there would be a different hollow patch. There'd be soil on one side of it more because it's pushed it. So I think the moon bubbles. I don't think it's been struck by meteoroids.
They're so smooth. They're not made out of indigenous material of the moon. So what are they? Let's go find out. So I don't know for sure.
Wow, that's heavy.
If this was a fire, there's a lot of smoke. There's a fire somewhere. And just the way NASA has behaved over the last decade, I mean, just look at the situation today. In a few days here, we're going to be at the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. 50 years later, I can't even get a human being off the planet. Who would have thought that? Back in 1969, I could hurl 450 tons of equipment to the moon and back, 500,000-mile round trip. And that was 50 years ago. Today, I can't even go to the moon. I can't even get into space now. You've done shut everything down. So why is that? Why did you burn the Pinta and the Santa Maria and the ships that Columbus was on? We did the same. We did just that. We came back and burned our ships. Pad 37A and B at the Cape.
Jim recently got MYOB, automating admin for better work-life balance. Now sparks are flying with his wife Dee at John's cooking class. And morning tea is magnifique.
Never miss breaking news again. You can get it on your phone, your tablet, or your smart TV.
nothing but slabs of concrete. They cut the structures down and sold it for scrap iron to China. I can't and put all the space shuttles in the museum and then told us it's time to celebrate. I shot my TV that day. I don't have a logical answer to tell you. There's nothing that makes sense unless there's another part of the story we have not been told. You know, they ran us off and then we're not allowed to come back.
Okay, Phil, here's where you and I are different. I ought to be avoiding them coppers.
There's no reason for us. We're 50 years in the future. And where are we? Did we go forwards or backwards? We went backwards. We ain't even got a way to get off the planet now. You have amateur astronomers by the millions all over the planet. And with today's technology, their little telescopes aren't significant. You just look at a commercial Celestron telescope. That thing you really see. Somebody would have seen something coming and going. Unless they're completely stealth and then there's, you know, like cloaked vehicles of Klingons.
Do you think we've got that technology yet?
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past that we do. I'm pretty sure we do because back in 1971, the stuff that I saw that was there was a good 50 to 100 years ahead. So imagine what they got today. So if they're going in that roadway, that path, they should be really significantly far ahead. They would have stuff like that.
And interestingly enough, our own experiments out of NASA of slamming things on the moon and it rings indicates that there has to be some kind of hollowness.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've never seen it personally. I've seen YouTubes where the moon gets hit and it rings like a bell.
I've seen a drawing. It looked like computers. So an abductee, whether is it telepathy? Were they taken to the moon? Were they taken inside? How much is literal eye-to-eye interaction, which is what humans would prefer to know, as opposed to telepathic downloads or holograms that are used instead of books, television, monitors, and a computer. Holograms are used more than anything else to communicate with Homo sapiens sapien. I'm convinced of that of my work. So the transmission vehicle for this information is not what the normal human is used to. But when you get drawings and people will point and say the moon is hollow and there's equipment inside, it fits into what this government guy said. And if you add one more perspective, and that was from December of 1999, he was a man who was retiring from the Defense Intelligence Agency in Washington after 2 years. He told me his job had been to monitor and analyze the geopolitical territorial conflict of 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations on this planet and throughout our solar system. And he said that our government in the United States had proof that these civilizations have been competing with each other in our solar system and on this planet for at least 270 million years. And when I said, what is the proof? He said, Linda, if I told you, it would be too dangerous for you and for me. It's one of the most intriguing answers to a question in my entire professional career. I don't have an answer. Why would it be dangerous to know the proof of competing extraterrestrial civilizations on our planet and in the solar system for at least 270 million years? I've thought a lot about that.
I suspect there's things going on, and your really hotbed of activity is going to be on the dark side. That's another thing about our moon. Remember I said earlier, I could go on for hours. Our moon is in a tidal lock. meaning that it doesn't rotate. That's not normal. We never see the backside of the moon. The moon's too big for us to capture. And then there's a statement by the astrophysicists themselves, and they kind of let it slip. They'll tell you that when the moon got here, do you know it stopped only 22,000 miles away from Earth? That's geosynchronous orbit. And it's been moving 1.5 inches back every year. And now it's out 248,000 miles. Do you realize that moon was only 22,000 miles away? You'd step out back, talk about a full moon. The entire horizon would be covered by the moon. Now here's my question. Unless I completely misunderstood all my life about celestial mechanics, a mass that big coming into the Earth, how does it stop? Because it should just slowly plow right into the Earth and just, be a mess. But it stopped. So
yeah, Sean, he'd know all about them oils.
Well, how did they do that? Well, somebody probably turned the engines off. I don't know. But there's just so much with the moon going on with it that we can't explain things, and it just doesn't make sense. And they just don't even bother talking about it. And that's not science. You don't, because something doesn't fit your little pigeonhole, you don't want to talk about it. Man, what? That's lame. You don't do science like that. You get in there and you research and find out what's going on. And if you can't get questions answered, you go there and start stomping around on the place and digging up stuff and finding things. NASA is privy to stuff. And NASA, when it got started in 1958, that thing was an extension of the CIA. So it's been in that elitist status ever since day one, and I have personally dealt with that stuff, and it's a nasty bunch of people. And they don't give a hoot about us at all. And the space program, that should be a universal denominator on the planet. Everybody's involved in that.
One of the segments that I really, really wanted to do was to talk with the astronauts who had been on the moon or had orbited the moon. And
I seen a video of Buzz Aldrin saying we never went to the moon. He was speaking to a little girl. I think we've all seen that.
had they seen UFOs or anything? Because I had been told that the moon was hollow, that the moon had computers on the inside, that for literally millions of years, it has been a machine that orbits our Earth, and that non-humans, through computers and through androids and clones and all kinds of artificial intelligence, there are monitoring systems of our planet. They do laboratory experiments, they interact, and that the moon as a machine is the device in which all of this monitoring is done. So I got to talk with Pete McDivitt about a very strange thing that he saw. Talked to Edgar Mitchell, talked with just a variety of different astronauts who had all seen strange things. The top of my list was Neil Armstrong, the first human to put their feet on the moon.
Sure.
All the other astronauts were easy. Just started doing a search, got phone numbers, called them up, took a crew, went out and talked to them. Nobody could get a phone number for Neil Armstrong. And as the senior producer and the person who was creating this series, and I had done so much work in the planet, and I had done medical programming and all, and I never had a problem. Why? I mean, he's world famous. He goes down in the history of the universe as the first man to step on the moon. And I'm working for Paramount to get a series on Fox, and I can't get a phone number to talk with him about the going to the moon. What is this about? Finally, I got a reference to a man who in their teenage to early 20 years, they were the best friends, Neil Armstrong, and we'll just call this man John Smith. John Smith and Neil Armstrong were like this. They did jet training together. So I'm giving his phone number to call up to learn what happened to Neil Armstrong. I'll never forget this dinner. I called up this man, told him what I was doing, working on this Fox special. He said, I can't talk to you on the phone. Let's meet for dinner. And here is the story. He said, like you, I watched Neil in that ticker tape parade in New York. First man.
I bet she's going to say Neil didn't walk on the moon.
In history to put his feet on the moon. And I remember all the days that Neil and I were learning this jet and we were the closest of friends, and I called him up. And it was soon after that ticker tape. I said, Neil, and like two buddies from 18 to 21, 22 years old. Can you imagine making a phone call like that? And Neil Armstrong has no reaction. And he said, it wasn't like I was talking to my old buddy at all. It's like, what is wrong here? And Neil Armstrong said to John Smith, let's not go out. You just come over to my house.
Wow.
He said he got there. Hardly any lights in the house. He rings the doorbell. His old buddy, Neil Armstrong, opens the door. I mean, you would think there would be, oh man! He said he was even looking at the floor. Neil Armstrong takes him into a living room. He said there was only one light on. Neil Armstrong sat down on a sofa. John Smith sat in a chair. He said, Neil, what is wrong? And he said, Neil Armstrong didn't even look at him eye to eye, is looking down at the floor when he says, you know, when the LEM was coming down and all that dust came up and NASA Mission Control said that they'd seen some rocks and they were having to turn right at the last minute so that they wouldn't hit the rocks. There were 3 huge silver craft right at the edge of the crater, and the camera was aimed, and we would have shown the entire world these 3 big silver craft. And that's why I turned.
Wow.
And then the whole evening, John Smith said, I thought I would be there for like dinner like the old days. And he said it was short. He clearly, Linda, he said, you know somebody so well. And he gave me that one insight about the truth. And he gets back and he's in New York City with a huge ticker tape parade. And he's had probably to sign non-disclosure agreements. You never talk about this. You never, ever. Would you want to go out into the world and look in people's eyes and be asked to sign autographs and be on television knowing that every single word that you were saying was a lie? after you were being put up as a hero, the first man to walk on the moon, and behind you is NASA and
Should have been the first man to blow the whistle.
the CIA and the NSA saying you can never talk about the alien presence on the moon. And that's what I learned producing UFO report sightings in Los Angeles.
Come on.
In the early 90s. And that our special aired, I think it was October of, maybe it was October of 91. I keep thinking of 90 because I think I had been working at Fox then. So I think it was October of 91. October 18th, 1991. It just popped in. That's the night. What was behind that special were the astronauts. Even Pete McDivitt had a Hasselblad. This strange cylindrical thing comes up outside of the window of their spacecraft. He said, I took 30, 35 photographs with a Hasselblad, highest resolution instrument you could possibly take. He said, I knew we got good photographs. I knew it was close. When they come back, everything, cameras, everything goes to various places in NASA. And he wanted to see his photos. And he went over to one of the photo labs when everything was cleared and he could. Said, I want to see my photos. And he said, the guy behind the desk said, sir, I'm sorry. They're classified. And he said, well, I'm the astronaut who took the photographs. And the NASA man went away and came back, like he went to ask somebody, and came back and said, sir, you don't have a need to know.
Wow.
And Pete McDivitt said, you know, what is going on here? And this is how the astronauts and all of their various stories, they would like to say, ladies and gentlemen and children of Earth, there's life on the moon, probably throughout the solar system, throughout the Milky Way galaxy. We have interstellar trade routes. We've had them since the 70s, and we're still living on a planet that makes Neil Armstrong and other astronauts lie about what they know.
I hate the question, and it comes up at dinner. Where were you when Neil Armstrong was walking on the moon? And they go around the table and they come up to me and I go, I got two choices, lie or tell the truth. Most of the time I lie. My lie is I was at home watching TV. You want to know where I really was? I was laying back against the knees of Viola Armstrong, Neil's mother. I am in Wapakoneta, Ohio, at his home. And when Neil was sleeping on the moon that night, I was sleeping in his childhood bed. Viola Armstrong was like my surrogate mother. I grew up in that world with him. And I knew Neil well, but Neil wasn't who I was going to see when I come over all the time. They only lived an hour by car from my house. I was in Centerburg, Ohio. They were in Wapakoneta. I'd come running in. Neil might be visiting. And, hi, Neil, run right past him. He goes, Mom's in the backyard. So I go in the backyard because that's where our canning stuff was, where we canned vegetables. She and I became really close friends. Well, how'd that happen? Neil got selected to be the first man on the moon. Now she is the mother of the first man on the moon. That makes her a dignitary. So she's the one that would go around in Ohio hanging medals around winners' necks. And after about the 8th or 9th medal she hung on my neck, in 4 weeks, she's going, what are you doing, John? I said, I guess I'm busy. She said, come over to my house and let's meet and talk. And we became friends. And she taught me how to can. Now, Armstrongs are German, and a bunch of Germans came into Ohio in the beginning of our country, and they had a huge farm, potato farms, and they became a co-op. So in the fall, they harvest all their food, and then they
I worked at a potato farm. Pretty hard yakka.
share it among the families. And so you start canning. So when we can, Viola and I didn't can 400 or 500 jars, and that's it. It's more like 10, 12,000 jars because it's co-op. So I had like an assembly line out back with all my bottles and my lids, and I was prepping and blanching, and she was the other women were packing and cutting and prepping. Anyway, it was a lot of fun in canning. I had so much fun with her. But I ran past Neil, and Violet came up to me one day and she said, now just imagine this statement. The mother of the first man on the moon comes up to you and says to you, David, Neil said something today about you. I said, yeah, what? He said, Mom, if I didn't get out of the way fast enough, I think David put a footprint on my head to get there. Back to you. And I said, oh, I didn't hurt his feelings, did I? She said, I don't know, but could you make some time to talk to him? Can you imagine you being asked that question? First man on the moon, can you make some time and talk to him? Yeah. So I said, yeah, I'm talking to Neil. But I knew Neil. I know so many personal, intimate stories on Neil. There's a lot of them I just can't. I promise Viola I wouldn't say. But there's some really cool stories with him.
Was he a good guy?
Very. He was a Boy Scout. He was the last of the Boy Scouts.
Was he honest?
He was actually an Eagle Scout. Very honest.
Did he change when he come back from the moon?
Something happened. Neil was always stoic, like a Mr. Spock. But I can tell, I've been around him so long, body language stuff. I know when
Hey, Vance, good to see you, bro.
To answer a question, he just won't talk or he's smart.
This is your link from yesterday, bro.
I'll and walk off, or he'll just change to something else. I had to ask him, I said, man, did you run anything strange up there? Anybody up there? And he didn't say no. He just said, there's just all kinds of things that went on up there. And I was looking at his face, I'm going, man, something went on up there.
Do you think he took those secrets to the grave?
Yes.
About his mum? Would he have shared them with his mum or?
He did. She shared some things with me. But there was still some things between a mother and son I couldn't even get into. But I was a close member of the family. All of that's been proven in a book written by the great nephew of Viola. He called me, and he is Jay Matchett. And Jay Matchett, he pulled Viola's.
Cue a castle to call your own. Now cue the insurance it deserves.
Ever since I bought this razor, my wife compliments me every day. With this
personal effects out of her collection of memoirs to write a book. And they opened up this box, and it's just stacks and stacks of letters tied in ribbons. And they were letters between her and I. And he said, who are you? The family don't know anything about you. I said, well, Viola and I planned it that way. We both had a paparazzi problem. So we didn't want anybody to know about us hanging out together. So we just kept it quiet. And they said, I have all these personal gifts from her. Her handwriting, I wasn't going to bring a book with me. I just got to bring it. But she gave me a book on my 18th graduation. And it's Russell Cromwell's Acres of Diamonds. But her handwriting looks like a machine. Just beautiful penmanship. Well, they looked at the handwriting, Jay did, and all the letters, and the family verified that it's real. Said, man, you are who you say. Here it all is. And we didn't know anything about you. Neil and his uncle were baling hay one day. Neil was about 14 years old. And a plane comes into the field. It's on fire, smoking. It crashed badly. So they ride over and they pull the pilot out. He's hurt bad. He's dying. Neil stays with the pilot while the uncle Bill gets help. And the pilot is, in Neil's lap. And the pilot tells Neil, he said, think you ever like to fly, kid? Neil says, of course. He said, don't let this accident throw you off. This is really rare. He said, go ahead and fly. He said, it's the best thing in the world you can do. And he dies. And that was a real moving experience for Neil, but hardly anybody knows that story. Tell you another incident. When Neil found out he was the first man on the moon selected, when he got back to Viola's house, he come running in the house screaming, I've been selected. Startled her so bad she dropped a jar of blackberry jam on her right big toe and broke it. And so I told Neil, I said, next time you run in and say something, take it easy on my partner there. She's got to stand on that foot. You see, a lot went on in the programs that most of you aren't privy to. Why was it that Neil was selected as first and Buzz second? Why wasn't it the other way around? NASA looked at the profiles on everybody, the psych reports. Clearly, Neil was a hermit. So when he came back from the moon, what happened? He disappeared. Well, not from me. I knew where he was all the time. He came back home, went on some touring, and his wife then wanted him to keep doing touring in the fame. And he was so against the fame, they divorced. That was a divorce for him. I remember I was at a Farmer Grains Association of the local sharecroppers. Neil was there talking to him. And this reporter come running in, uninvited, shows the camera in his face, takes a picture. Neil uppercuts this guy so hard, the camera went straight up in the air. It was one of them big ones with the bellow thing. And I get under it and I catch it. And the guy is knocked out cold. And I lay the camera on his chest. And Neil said, let's go. And we did.
Yeah, a good uppercut will knock you out cold. That's true.
And that's last, but I mean, I watched Neil knock the guy out. If you doubt that, remember when Buzz Aldrin hit that dude?
Yeah.
And the judge ruled that the guy got what he deserved. I like that part. But the reason NASA picked Neil, his profile showed he'd be a hermit. He came back home and disappeared. What they did not want to deal with is a term called astropower. That's where the astronauts could build a name like Joe Montana. They kept them all suppressed. However, Buzz Aldrin was the exact opposite. He's an extrovert. Neil was an introvert. But the title First Man on the Moon, that is a humongous title, and they will carry very careful who they gave that to. And Neil was selected because it showed that he would disappear. And what he did, he joined his brother out in South Dakota in the oil rig drilling business. And they made a lot of money, and they sold out right before the 80s bust. And they made a fortune. And so Neil,
no. Where is she?
Really was set financially pretty well after that. Then what he did, he went back to Lebanon, Ohio, at the University of Cincinnati, and became a physics teacher, and he was there for the duration of most of his life. And that's where he was. You could find him every day on campus, but nobody ever knew where he was hardly. And he did exactly what NASA wanted him to do, just move into obscurity. Now, Buzz has been just the opposite. He danced with the stars and stuff. So they didn't want to give him that title. Now, these titles are really important to a lot of people, was the Buzz. But, one of the biggest titles of the 20th century was First Man on the Moon. This group I'm dealing with, the 1%ers, I told them I can give you a title bigger than that. And they're going, how is that possible? Matter of fact, I can give your name, immortality. You guys got so much money, the one thing you can't buy is time. You won't live forever. So you're looking for immortality. I can hand that to you. How so? We go back to the moon. And the way my drones are set, I'll come in, I'm going to go all 12 sites. Well, maybe after a second, or maybe the very first one, or 2 or 3 sites, some little creature walks out with a weapon, just blows our probe out of the sky. We get it on camera.
Wow.
I'm beaming everything live feed back to Earth. So you'll see at the same time we do.
I agree, Wyo. Wow, Di.
So there's a probe done. Next day, one word across the entire page of newspapers, contact. And whoever funded contact's name will go down through all of history forever, bigger than Neil Armstrong's. And they all were dead quiet, and they said, "We like the way you think." I bet you do. So anyway, that's where I am with that crowd. Well, I can tell you one thing from personal experience. God has a really warped sense of humor. He really is. He likes dark humor. I mean, you get a redneck hillbilly born to a family of illiterates who's working quantum physics differential mechanics at age 7. How about that for a twist? And then this chain of events that occurred that was just insane. And the people that showed up and the way things happened, and now current at this moment. I believe my entire life was programmed up to this moment, because once again, it's a big if, but if these people are real, if this money's real, I'll alter the course of the entire world, planet, everybody, and you'll watch it, and it'll be quick. It'll be very quick. Not talking 30, 40 years.
Diane, them links you posted about Germany and Japan. Japan's worth, I think it said $530 trillion. That's ridiculous money, isn't it? And that's just for Japan.
We're talking 5, 6 years. In 5 years, I can have the biggest spaceport on the planet. I can have wagon wheels in orbit. I'll already be on the moon, made new friends, and then we'll be on our way to Mars. And somewhere along the line, if I have time to bring my fusion containment engine back online, Star Trek. I'll give you star travel. If the idiots hadn't gotten to a tug of war with me between the Air Force and the CIA in 1971, and I didn't even get to go to college. I went to college when I was 40 years old. Instead, I was thrown into college, and I was just forced into the military. They shanghaied me, and I was there for 11 years. Wow. But if he had worked with me at that time instead of against me in the tug of war, we would have star travel right now. I'd be in phase 4 of my containment design, and at phase 4, I could get you to places you couldn't even imagine. Because in my containment engine, I answered the riddle that Einstein once wrote. He asked a question, a riddle. How can you go millions of times faster than the speed of light without breaking the speed of light and remaining constant in Newtonian physics? I answered the riddle. The best way to do it is take a piece of paper. I did this for a movie called Event Horizon. I wrote this part for them. Sam Neill, the actor, he's describing it. You got a piece of paper here. Here's the Milky Way galaxy. Here's Andromeda. Now, shortest distance is a straight line, right? Yeah. Well, not really. There's another way. So you got this piece of paper, and at the speed of light, at 186,756 miles per second, it'd take you 200 million years to get across this page. 200 million light years away is Andromeda. I can get you there a whole lot faster. What? In phase 4, my craft has a containment field around the engine. itself. But then you build a secondary wave of the containment field outside the spacecraft. Your spacecraft has now become an artificial black hole. And you take that piece of paper and you roll it up and flatten it out in linear, straight line. You'll fly at about half light speed across that edge. And what you're doing, you're jumping through each of these walls are touching each other, and you're jumping through them. And so it's something I coined called trans-dimensional jump drive. You'll jump through that area, in that little short area, about half light speed, shut off your engine, roll out the paper, and you're over here at Andromeda in less than 5 minutes your time. How about that for speed?
What about Uncle Frank? He's a lawyer. Everyone's
Border Force officers have pulled aside a woman travelling alone from Canada.
She's here for a very short time. She's never been here before. She doesn't know anybody here. Yeah, it's quite unusual.
Her suspect travel movements are also causing some alarm.
So it's a loud audio. It's an ad, guys. I can't help it. Oh, no, that one finished.
During the austral summer. Science.
Photographs are really compelling because this is not somebody making believe something is there. You can actually see the skid marks. It actually looks as though an object is moving along that ice.
McMurdo Station occupies a rocky promontory on the southern shore of Ross Island in Antarctica. It acts
already. Look at that pyramid, guys.
As the primary
Take it back a bit. You look at that pyramid already.
Nice.
McMurdo Station occupies a rocky promontory on the southern shore of Ross Island in Antarctica.
That's a pyramid.
It acts as the primary logistics hub for United States research on the continent.
I was never here. Good to see ya.
Established by the U.S. government in 1956, the station can host up to 1,200 people during the austral summer. Scientists, pilots, engineers, and support staff come together under harsh conditions of cold, wind, and long hours of daylight to carry out work in fields ranging from glaciology to astrophysics. Between 1983 and 1990.
If the Earth is flat like some say, how does Antarctica get put in the darkness for 24 hours a day, or the opposite? How does it get light 24 hours a day? That completely dispels the flat Earth argument.
1987, a U.S. Navy flight engineer stationed at McMurdo logged hundreds of hours in the squadron known as the Antarctic Development Squadron. On routine missions, he flew personnel and supplies between McMurdo and scattered field camps. In clear weather, his crew often had views that stretched for miles across ice plateaus and jagged mountain ridges. During one flight through the Transantarctic Mountains, they encountered something that defied their training. High above the ice, a group of smooth metallic spheres appeared. Each object measured roughly 10 to 15 feet across and had a gleaming silvery surface. They hovered at various heights, moving as a coordinated unit toward a particular rocky peak.
Yes, I was never here. They say the sun comes and goes, but if it comes and goes, when it's coming, it'll be small and growing bigger when it hits us, and then deflecting later on and sinking more. So the sun doesn't do that. It stays the same size throughout the sky. So you know flat Earth theory is so stupid, they don't even think it through.
As the spheres neared the summit, they paused briefly, then shot upward in unison.
Yeah,
before
Alaska's
vanishing
the
from
same,
sight.
yep.
No change in wind or thermal currents explained their behavior. Onboard cameras captured only faint glints where shutter speeds were too slow. Radar screens showed blips that faded in a few seconds, leaving no solid track. Over the next several months, similar encounters took place. On each mission, the objects formed the same pattern. They hovered, converged on a single point, then dispersed instantly. Flight logs noted sudden magnetic spikes and brief power failures whenever the crew tried to record instrument data near the objects. Electronic compasses spun wildly, and radios hummed with static. Engineers rewired circuits and reset breakers, but anomalies recurred whenever the spheres appeared. One summer, a field scientist suffered a severe medical episode at a remote camp. Time was critical. A long-range flight would be the only way to save the researcher's life. The squadron approved a flight path that cut across a mapped no-fly zone, a vast expanse of ice known for hidden crevasses. As the plane descended toward the camp, it passed over a feature the crew had never seen on maps or satellite imagery. A massive circular opening in the ice, tilted downward at about a 30-degree angle.
Wow.
From above, the cavity resembled the mouth of a tunnel carved into the glacier. Its diameter stretched nearly 200 feet. Along its edge,
Wow.
walls of blue-tinged ice rose sharply, framing darkness within. As the aircraft came within a few hundred feet of the rim, onboard instruments went offline. The cockpit lights dimmed. Digital gauges froze, then reset. Compass needles spun without settling. Radios cut out. Mechanical systems remained functional, but all electric power flickered. The pilot climbed rapidly to clear the area. Once the plane was several thousand feet above the hole, power returned. Radios crackled back to life. Navigational instruments realigned. The crew completed the medical evacuation without further incident, then flew back to McMurdo. Upon landing, they were met by civilian-dressed officials who displayed credentials from a government office in Washington, D.C. These men escorted the crew into a private area and instructed them never to discuss the ice opening or the instrument failures. Orders included formal non-disclosure agreements and warnings of legal consequences for any breach. Despite the official silence, word of the event spread among station personnel. Maintenance logs contained vague references to unexplained power surges on aircraft systems, meteorological...
Diane, for two people to cruise to Antarctica, it cost $32,000. They advertised trips to Antarctica on a nice looking boat, but that's what they charge, $32,000. I wouldn't pay that for anything.
Reports noted sudden magnetic disturbances near the mapped coordinates of the hidden cavity. Geologists reviewing ice core records found anomalous layers in that.
We get whales swim through Sydney Harbour in the summer, no, in the winter and the summer. They do where they go, you know how they go travelling? They go through Sydney Harbour when they do it. When they migrate, yeah.
Region. Zones of refrozen meltwater mixed with sediment, appearing out of sequence in depth profiles. But no public report ever mentioned an ice tunnel or related heat sources. Decades earlier, in 1947, Admiral Richard E. Byrd led a U.S. expedition to the South Pole region. During flights over the polar plateau, Byrd described seeing what he called a great fissure in the ice, hinting at a passage leading into a warmer, ice-free zone below. Official expedition documents emphasize mapping, meteorological observations, and equipment tests. They do not mention any subterranean entrance, yet personal journals and later interviews attributed to Byrd speak of magnetic anomalies and unexpected temperature readings near unnamed features. After his return, he underwent a confidential debriefing in Washington. He was, according to hearsay accounts, cautioned against speaking further about any underground opening. Skeptics argue that wind-driven erosion and solar melt can form large ice caves and tunnels along rock faces. They point to known ice arches on nearby islands, which collapse and reform each year. Instrument failures, they note, often occur in extreme cold when circuits encounter ice crystals or sudden temperature shifts. Solar flares can disrupt navigational equipment at high latitudes. In such an environment, pilots learn to expect compass errors and power glitches. Still, the combination of first-hand sightings, repeated magnetic spikes, and military-enforced secrecy has not been fully explained. McMurdo Station operates one of the most advanced scientific programs in Antarctica.
Wow.
Ice cores drilled near the pole reveal climate data stretching back.
Diane, that's ridiculous, $20,000 to see Taylor. Apparently, Katy Perry's having trouble filling her audience, and so is Beyonce. And Beyonce's linked to that P. Diddy stuff, and her Cowboy Carter trip is failing. It's good to see.
Hundreds of thousands of years. Deep sea diver.
Here's another one, Diane. You had to pay $8,000 for good seats to watch it, apparently. And by the time the video was over, they were selling them for like $87, something like that.
Explore sub-ice marine ecosystems. Seismographs record tremors from thousands of miles away. Yet certain flight paths are now off limits, and pilots receive briefings to avoid specific coordinates. Now, let's turn our attention to another mystery. Wilkes Land sits on the eastern side of Antarctica, largely hidden beneath a thick ice sheet. Underneath that sheet, roughly 1,600 meters below the surface, lies a mass of rock far denser than the surrounding crust. This feature shows up as a strong gravity signal when measured from space. Scientists call it the Wilkes Land gravity anomaly. Most people think Earth's gravity is the same everywhere. In reality, it varies slightly from place to place. Dense rock pulls harder on satellites than lighter rock. Mountains, dense mineral deposits, and deep trenches all leave small fingerprints in Earth's gravity field. To map these variations, research.
Diane, I'd pay $80 for a good night to see some of the bands that I used to like. But there's no way I'd pay $8,000 or $20,000 for any sort of musical experience. It just wouldn't happen.
Use satellites that can feel tiny changes in pull as they circle the globe.
Stop jumping down.
In March 2002, a pair of satellites lifted off from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in Russia. They formed the GRACE mission, Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment. Flying about 200 kilometers apart in a near-polar orbit, the satellites measure how the distance between them shifts. When the lead satellite passes over a region with stronger gravity, it pulls ahead and increases the gap. When it leaves that region, the gap shrinks. By tracking those shifts, scientists build a global gravity map.
The pursuit of success is defined by moments of action.
The MG end of financial year sale is on now. Get behind the wheel of a new MG with a $1,000.
When Grace data began
to
stream
saying
in, it revealed a...
And Anton LaVey, are you saying they're the parents of Taylor Swift?
Ring-shaped gravity low over the ocean and several gravity highs on land. One of the most striking highs lay under Wilkes Land. In a place where no mountain range or known dense rock should exist.
I can actually see Anton LaVey in her face now, you pointed out. Wow, interesting.
Grace showed a concentration of mass roughly 320 kilometers across. The strength of the signal suggested a plug of dense rock more than 100 kilometers thick. In 2006, geophysicist Ralph von Fries and his student Laramie Potts at Ohio State University published a paper on this finding. They combined Grace gravity data with ice-penetrating radar and seismic surveys flown over Antarctica. Radar profiles revealed a roughly circular ridge on the bedrock surface, buried under ice. The ridge measures close to 500 kilometers in diameter and stands up to 300 meters above surrounding terrain. Seismic soundings showed a plug of dense mantle material beneath the ridge, extending at least 100 kilometers down into the crust. Von Friesen noted that on the Moon, similar gravity highs appear at the centers of impact basins. He wrote, "If I saw this Mascon signal on the Moon, I'd expect to see a crater around it." On the Moon, large impacts send dense mantle rock upward, filling the basin and creating a mass excess known as a Mascon. The same process could explain the Wilkes Land feature. A meteor or asteroid, perhaps 20 to 30 kilometers wide, could have struck Antarctica late in Earth's history. An impact of that size would have left a crater over 400 kilometers wide and driven up mantle rock into the crust. Further support comes from layers of molten rock in the area. Samples from offshore volcanic ridges north of Wilkes Land show pulses of magma around 66 million years ago, at the end of the Cretaceous period. That date coincides with the mass extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs. Some researchers suggest the Wilkes Land impact may have contributed to environmental crises at that time. The impact could have thrown dust and aerosols into the atmosphere, lowering temperatures and blocking sunlight. If true, it might join the Chicxulub impact in Mexico as a twin strike that shaped Earth's history. Not everyone agrees on the impact theory. Some geologists propose that the dense mass represents upwelling mantle rock, similar to mid-ocean ridge processes. In this view, hot mantle material slowly rose into the crust, pressing upward and forming a circular bulge. As magma cooled, it left behind a plug of dense igneous rock. Over millions of years, erosion and ice flow erased surface traces, leaving only the gravity signal. To test these ideas, scientists have examined the thickness of the Antarctic crust in that region. Using seismic waves, they found the crust beneath Wilkes Land is thinner, around 35 kilometers, than the global average of 40 kilometers. Thinner crust fits both scenarios. Impact excavation could remove crust, or mantle upwelling could push it aside as new material rises. But the circular ridge and Mascon pattern match impact basins more closely than volcanic provinces. Drilling through 2 kilometers of ice to reach bedrock remains a challenge. The cold, remote location and logistical costs make direct sampling difficult. No Antarctic drilling project has yet targeted the Wilkes Land structure. Without rock samples from the feature itself, researchers rely on remote sensing and comparison to known impact sites. Meteorite fragments or shocked minerals, key proof of an impact, remain undiscovered. Beyond scientific interest, the anomaly raises other questions. Could a buried crater hold oil or gas deposits? Unlikely in Antarctica, where international treaties ban mineral exploitation. Could ancient rivers or lakes have formed in the crater long ago, trapping sediments and fossils? Possibly. Subglacial lakes already exist in East Antarctica. If any lay in the Wilkes Land basin before ice covered it, they might contain records of past climates and microbial life. However, no sonar or radar survey has yet detected a lake in that exact spot. The Wilkes Land gravity anomaly also fuels fringe theories. Some claim it marks the remnants of the lost city of Atlantis, or a hidden Nazi base. They point to Operation High Jump in 1946 to 47, when the U.S. Navy sent thousands of personnel, ships, and aircraft to Antarctica under Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Official documents state the mission's goals were training in polar conditions and establishing a research base. Conspiracy writers suggest High Jump secretly searched for an entrance to a hollow Earth or or alien installations. They cite Byrd's own diary, which mentions unusual electromagnetic readings and unidentified flying objects. Yet mainstream historians find no credible evidence that High Jump aimed to locate hidden structures. More sober theories link the anomaly to natural processes at the edge of the East Antarctic Craton. The Craton is a stable block of ancient rock dating back 3 billion years. Tectonic fractures and ancient rifts lie beneath the ice. In the past, these rifts hosted volcanic activity and may have formed large basins. As ice advanced and retreated, sediments filled those basins. Heat from Earth's interior melted some of the lower ice, creating subglacial lakes. Gravity measurements today pick up the combined effect of dense bedrock, sediment, and water. Looking ahead, scientists plan new surveys with more sensitive instruments. NASA's GRACE-FO follow-on mission, launched in 2018, continues gravity mapping. Ice-penetrating radar aboard aircraft provides higher-resolution views of the bed beneath. Seismic stations on the ice surface record distant earthquakes, helping map crustal thickness in detail. If funding and environmental approvals permit, a deep drilling project could reach the anomaly itself, bringing back core samples for chemical and structural analysis. Even without direct samples, models of ice flow may reveal the crater's shape. Ice moves predictably over uneven bedrock. By tracking surface elevation changes and radar profiles, researchers can infer valley shapes and ridge lines. If the anomaly includes a central peak, a typical feature of large impact craters, it may show up as a bump beneath the ice. Some early models hint at a gentle rise in the center of the gravity low, but data are not yet conclusive. Beyond Wilkes Land, Antarctica holds other secrets far beneath its ice and snow. Each one offers a glimpse into hidden worlds, biological, geological, and even atmospheric, that challenge what we think we know about our planet. Blood falls. On the Taylor Glacier in the McMurdo Dry Valleys, bright red water flows from a crevasse in the ice. First noticed in 1911, this blood fall looks like a wound in the glacier. In reality, iron-rich water seeps from a pocket of salt, saturated ancient seawater trapped under the ice. As the water meets the air, iron oxidizes and turns the stream crimson. Microbes living in the salty water derive energy by oxidizing iron, surviving in total darkness and cold. Blood falls shows life can thrive in places once thought uninhabitable. Lake Vostok. Beneath more than 4 kilometers of ice under Russia's Vostok Station lies one of the largest subglacial lakes on Earth. Isolated for millions of years, Lake Vostok has never seen sunlight. In 2012, Russian teams drilled into it and retrieved water and ice samples. Those samples revealed bacteria never seen elsewhere.
Yeah.
Researchers study Lake Vostok to learn how life might survive on icy moons like Jupiter's Europa or Saturn's Enceladus. Its deep waters may contain oxygen trapped under pressure, creating a unique habitat for microbes. Moving rocks of the dry valleys. On several glacial flats, smooth stones leave long trails on dry mud as they shift position over time. Called moving rocks or sailing stones, these pebbles glide silently, crossing plains without human or animal help. Scientists found that under rare conditions, thin ice, light winds, and sun-warmed ground, ice sheets form around stones and tilt them. When a gentle breeze pushes the ice, the stones coast along, carving tracks. Even so, the sight of isolated rocks scoring long lines across a frozen lake bed still surprises visitors. Subglacial rivers and lakes, satellite altimetry, and radar surveys have revealed over 400 subglacial lakes beneath Antarctica's ice sheet. These bodies of water link through hidden rivers, carving pathways over bedrock. In East Antarctica, melted water flows under pressure for hundreds of kilometers, emerging at ice shelf edges and affecting how quickly ice reaches the sea. Mapping these networks helps researchers predict how Antarctica's ice will respond to warming. It also suggests isolated pockets where life could exist away from surface extremes. Meteorite graveyards. Antarctica's cold desert collects meteorites that fall from space. As ice flows toward the coast, it pushes embedded meteorites against mountain ranges, concentrating them in blue ice areas. Scientists have recovered over 50,000 space rocks here, nearly 80% of known meteorites. Among them are fragments from Mars and the Moon, as well as rare carbonaceous chondrites carrying organic compounds. These finds help us understand the early solar system and the building blocks of life. Emperor penguin communication. Emperor penguins breed on sea ice in Antarctica's deep winter. They endure temperatures below -40 degrees Celsius and months of darkness. By standing in tight huddles, they share body heat. Each bird learns to recognize its mate's call amid thousands of squawking adults. In recent years, researchers using drone and acoustic surveys discovered that penguins also use low-frequency calls to signal weather changes. One study showed a unique deep boom that may warn of incoming storms, giving the colony time to tighten its huddle before a blizzard. The ozone hole and its effects.
Wow.
Each Antarctic spring, a vast hole opens in Earth's ozone layer above the continent. First noticed in the 1980s, this depletion results from human-made chemicals called CFCs. Ultraviolet light breaks CFC molecules apart, freeing chlorine atoms that destroy ozone. The ozone hole shifts weather patterns in the southern hemisphere, affecting wind and rainfall. After an international ban on CFCs, the ozone layer shows signs of recovery. Continued monitoring over the Antarctic sky remains critical to understanding global climate. Cosmic neutrino detection. Under the ice near the South Pole, scientists have built the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory. They've drilled strings of light sensors more than 2 kilometers deep into the ice. When a neutrino, a tiny, nearly massless particle, interacts with the ice, it emits faint flashes of light. By capturing these flashes, IceCube tracks neutrinos from deep space. In 2018, it traced one high-energy neutrino back to a galaxy 3.7 billion light-years away, opening a new window on the universe. Antarctic blood falls. In addition to the Taylor Glacier site, other red-stained outflows appear where iron-rich water meets oxygen. Each presents a chance to study extremophile microbes. Some researchers target these flows for enzymes that remain active at sub-zero temperatures. Such enzymes may find use in industrial processes and biotechnology. Seismic mystery quakes. Seismometers on the ice record tremors too small for humans to feel. Some of these ice quakes occur when ice shelves crack or move. Others register as long-period events without a clear source. Researchers debate whether these signals come from subglacial lakes shifting, volcanic activity under the ice, or even distant storms. Pinpointing the causes could improve models of ice sheet dynamics and reveal active processes deep under the ice. Ancient fossil forests. In rocky areas now at the West Antarctic ice sheet's edge, fossilized tree stumps and leaves date to the Eocene epoch, 50 million years ago. At that time, Antarctica sat further north and supported forests. Finding these fossils helps scientists reconstruct past climates. It also shows how continental drift and greenhouse gas levels once combined to warm the planet enough to support temperate flora at high latitudes. Antarctic winds. The katabatic winds of Antarctica are gravity-driven blasts, flowing downhill from the high interior to the coast. In some valleys, speeds exceed 300 kilometers per hour. These cold, dense airstreams shape ice-forming patterns and scour the landscape. They also influence weather on neighboring continents by altering air circulation. Observing wind effects here improves our understanding of global jet streams and storm tracks. Remote research aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles now survey hard-to-reach areas of Antarctica. Equipped with ice-penetrating radar, gravimeters, and magnetometers, these drones map bedrock topography, subglacial channels, and gravity anomalies in high detail. Early flights already revealed small lakes and caves that escaped satellite detection. As technology improved,
Okay, that was interesting. Not as good as I thought it would be, though. I was going to finish with this.
Burning. The sky is covered with dark clouds. Jerusalem is burning. The sky is covered with dark clouds, as if the heavens themselves were mourning what was happening. Amidst the cries, the clashing of swords, and the cracking of collapsing walls, the Babylonian army advances relentlessly. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, watches the sacred city to be taken. His eyes show no mercy. Next to him, advisors write down names, wealth, and order, the separation of the most promising young people. From the ruins, 4 teenagers are dragged: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Their clothes are dirty, but their gaze remains steady. They are taken to a foreign land, where their names, culture, and faith will be put to the test. In the heart of Babylon, the palace gates open like the mouth of a hungry monster. There, under the command of Aspenaz, the chief of the king's officials, the youths are renamed. Daniel becomes Belteshazzar. Ananias is called Shadrach. Mishael is named Meshach. And Azariah receives the name Abednego. In the training, fine delicacies, succulent meats, and aromatic wines are served. But Daniel looks suspiciously. It wasn't just food, it was consecration. The food and drink had been offered to the Babylonian gods. Bravely,
Shawnee, with that bye-bye Miss American Pie, substitute the word music with church age. Try and put any other words bar church age in it, and it won't work. Church age only works. No other word can fit. The church age fits, but it's actually about tribulation. It's not about Buddy Holly's death. I say it's about tribulation.
he approaches Aspenaz.
And they don't know that.
I ask you not to make me defile myself with the king's food and wine.
Aspenaz hesitates. He sympathizes with Daniel, but fears Nebuchadnezzar's anger. Daniel insists. He proposes a test.
Try your servants for 10 days. Just give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the other youths.
The proposal is accepted. 10 days go by. Daniel and his friends look healthy, stronger than everyone else. Impressed, Aspenaz allows them to continue with their diet. As the days go by, the God of Israel honors the faithfulness of the young people. They excel in knowledge, literature, and wisdom. Especially, Daniel is granted something extra, the gift of interpreting visions and dreams. At the end of the 3 years of training,
Guys, when I was in a psych ward in 2015, there was a Muslim in there, and I was arguing with him about Jesus. Then the next morning, he gets up He said, I had a bad dream because of you last night. I said, let me guess. You saw flames and Jesus. He said, no, I saw flames and a cross. So yeah, that was pretty, not coincidental. That was pretty stunning, actually. But it happened. I don't tell lies, guys. You know that.
The young people are brought to the presence of King Nebuchadnezzar. The throne room is gigantic, golden, opulent. The king observes them closely, asks questions, and tests their reasoning. At the end of the audience, he stands up and declares,
in my entire court, there is no one who compares to these four.
They are appointed to important positions. Daniel, in particular, receives the direct attention of the king. But the peace is short-lived. A disturbance shakes the throne of Babylon. One night, Nebuchadnezzar wakes up with his face covered in sweat. His heart races. He turns in bed, takes a deep breath, and tries to remember. But the dream fades like mist. Something unsettling remains in your soul. He calls the wizards, charmers, and astrologers.
I had a dream that deeply troubles me. I want to know what I dreamed and what it means.
Our state's still being drenched with rain, and the rain's going to stop, and then we're getting southerly winds come in. So our state still hasn't recovered from the floods. It's in a bad way, actually. A lot of houses lost.
The wise people look at each other confused.
Tell us the dream, O king, and we will interpret it.
But Nebuchadnezzar rages.
I refuse. You must tell me both the dream and its interpretation. If you do not, you will be cut into pieces, and your houses will be turned into piles of rubble.
Fear spreads like a wildfire. No man can read another's mind. No wise man dares to speak. The king, enraged, issues a death decree to all the sages of Babylon.
And Diane, Israel's not that very big, is it? Yet 20,000 acres burned. I didn't even know they had 20,000 acres in there.
Daniel, upon learning of the decree, seeks out Arioch, the captain of the guard in charge of executions.
Why is the king in such a hurry?
Upon understanding the seriousness of the case, Daniel asks for time.
Ask the king to give me some time.
He retreats with his friends, and together they do what they know. They pray. On their knees they cry out to the God of the heavens.
O God of my ancestors.
Imagine that, and God's actually listening to you. That's so stunning.
Ancestors, I praise and thank you, for you have given me wisdom and power, and revealed to me what we asked for. You revealed the king's dream.
That night, Daniel has a vision. The mystery is uncovered. The next day, he presents himself to Arioch.
Do not kill the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret the dream for him.
Destiny now calls him to the throne room. Firm steps, resolute eyes. The crowd waits in silence. Before Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel does not boast.
No wise enchanter, wizard, or soothsayer can reveal this mystery, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries.
And there, in that sacred moment, the young Hebrew begins to reveal the content of the dream that the king had forgotten.
It is a huge statue with a head of gold, a chest of silver, a belly of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron and clay.
The king's breathing stops. Daniel continues.
You, O king, are the head of gold. After you, an inferior kingdom will arise, then a third one of bronze, and a fourth kingdom strong as iron. In the end, a kingdom that God will establish will come. an eternal kingdom that shall never be destroyed.
The throne of Nebuchadnezzar trembles before the greatness of the revelation. The king bows down before Daniel in admiration.
Certainly, your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings.
Amen.
Daniel is promoted. His friends receive high positions in the province. The name of the God of Israel begins to echo within the walls of Babylon. But in the heart of the king, something begins to change. Pride grows, and soon a new trial by fire approaches.
How do you do that? I was never here. How do you do a Daniel's fast?
Days go by. The golden glow of the Babylonian throne reflects the growing vanity of Nebuchadnezzar. Still impressed by the revelation of the dream, the king sees himself as the center of all power. Despite the prophetic warning that other kingdoms would come after his, Nebuchadnezzar decides to rewrite his own destiny. He orders the construction of a colossal statue, 27 meters tall, entirely made of gold from head to toe, a direct affront to the vision he had received.
Nero had a big statue of him outside of the Colosseum. That's why it's called the Colosseum, because there was a Colossus statue there. I don't know how big it was, but it was pretty high. It was torn down about 800 years ago. But yeah, Nero had a big statue like this.
The statue is erected on the plain of Dura as a symbol of his eternal glory. A decree is issued. When you hear the sound of the trumpet, the flute, the harp, the lyre, the bagpipe, and all kinds of music, bow down and worship the image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Anyone who does not bow down will be immediately thrown into a fiery furnace. The crowd bows, musicians play, men and women kneel like waves bending before a storm. But three figures remain standing. Amid the prostrated crowd, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego challenge the royal decree. The news quickly reaches the palace. Jealous advisors rush to the king.
O king, you said that anyone who does not bow down will be thrown into the furnace, for there are Jews who do not worship your gods, nor adore the golden image you have erected.
Furious, Nebuchadnezzar orders the three young men to be brought before him. His expression is grim. He tries to give them one last chance.
Is it true that you do not worship my image? If you bow down now, everything will be fine. But if you don't, you will be thrown immediately into the furnace. And what God will be able to save you from my hand?
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego respond with courage.
O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to deliver us. But even if he does not deliver us, know, O king, that we will not serve your gods, nor worship the image you have set up.
Silence. The throne trembles with anger. The king orders the furnace to be heated 7 times more.
Wow.
Strong soldiers tie the young ones. The furnace roars like a ravenous monster. The men who throw them in die from the heat, but the three fall into the fire and do not scream. The king suddenly stands up. His eyes widen. He speaks perplexed.
Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire?
Yes, O king!
But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the middle of the fire, and they are unharmed. And the 4th man looks like a son of the gods.
Nebuchadnezzar approaches the furnace and shouts,
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here.
They come out. Their clothes are not scorched. Not a single hair was burned. There is no smell of smoke on them. The advisors watch in silence and awe. The king then declares before the entire court,
Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants. No other God is able to deliver like this.
Amen.
They are promoted to even higher positions, but deep down, the king remains torn between fear and pride. An internal struggle begins to grow. One night, while the city sleeps, the king has another dream. This time, it is different. He sees a gigantic tree that touches the sky and is visible to the ends of the earth. Its branches feed and shelter all creatures, but a heavenly messenger descends and shouts, "Cut down the tree, trim its branches, spread its fruit, but leave the stump with roots, bound with iron and bronze. Let the human mind be removed and be given the heart of an animal, until he recognizes that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men."
And animals.
The king wakes up disturbed. He calls for Daniel. The atmosphere in the room is tense. Daniel listens to the account in silence. In the end, he is astonished. His expression changes. Nebuchadnezzar notices.
Do not be afraid to tell me, Belteshazzar. What does the dream mean?
Daniel takes a deep breath and replies,
O king, may this dream apply to your enemies. The tree is you. You have grown and become strong. Your greatness reaches unto the sky, but you will be expelled from among men and will live like animals. You will eat grass like a cow. And this will last 7 times until you recognize that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men.
The king remains silent. Daniel, with compassion, pleads,
O king, accept my advice. Renounce your sins and practice justice. Maybe then you will prolong your prosperity.
But time goes by and pride wins. 12 months later, while strolling on the terrace of his palace, Nebuchadnezzar gazes at the city.
Isn't this the great Babylon that I have built as a royal residence, with my power and for the glory of my majesty?
Before the sentence ends, a voice echoes from the heavens.
O King Nebuchadnezzar, your royal authority has been taken from you.
At the same moment, he goes mad. He is expelled from the palace, lives in the fields, eats like the oxen. His body gets wet like the dew. His hair grows like eagle feathers. His nails like bird claws. The glory of the most powerful man on earth is reduced to humiliation. At the end of the 7 times, the king lifts his eyes to the sky. His reason returns to him. He kneels down and, with a choked voice, declares,
Praise the Most High. Honor and glorify the one who lives forever. His reign is eternal. He humbles those who walk with pride.
Restored to the throne, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges there is a God above all thrones of the earth. But Babylon will not last forever. Soon, another king will emerge, one who will disdain the sacred and whose end will be sealed by an invisible hand. Time passes. Nebuchadnezzar disappears from records. The throne of Babylon now belongs to Belshazzar, the grandson of the former king. But unlike his grandfather, who learned to fear the God of the heavens, Belshazzar indulges in mockery, arrogance, and rampant idolatry. It is night. The palace is filled with music and wine. A lavish banquet is offered to 1,000 nobles. Women dance. Pagan priests chant profane songs. The atmosphere is one of drunkenness and decadence. Amidst the euphoria, the king has a macabre idea.
Bring the gold and silver cups taken from the temple of the Hebrew god in Jerusalem. Let's toast with them.
The sacred relics that had been consecrated to the God of Israel are now desecrated in a mocking ritual. Belshazzar raises a cup.
The deities of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone.
Everyone laughs, drinks, celebrates. But then the room falls into a sudden and cold silence. A hand appears without a body, just luminous and supernatural fingers that write fiery words on the palace wall before everyone's eyes. Mene mene tekel parsin. Panic. The musicians stop. The glasses fall to the floor. Belshazzar turns pale. His legs shake. His knees knock together. He shouts,
Call the magicians, the fortune tellers, the enchanters. Whoever can decipher these words will be dressed in purple, receive a gold chain, and be the third in the kingdom.
But no one understands the inscription. The mystery paralyzes the court until the Queen Mother, hearing the commotion, enters the room and addresses the king with reverence.
O king, do not be troubled. Among us there is a man in whom the spirit of the holy gods dwells. In the days of your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar, he revealed dreams and mysteries. His name is Daniel.
Daniel is brought. Now older, his face carries wisdom and firmness. He observes the scene, the cups on the floor, the spilled wine, the fiery writing still pulsing on the wall. Belshazzar tries to seduce him with promises.
If you interpret these words, you will be dressed in purple, receive gold, and rule by my side.
But Daniel refuses.
You can keep your gifts. Give your rewards to someone else. Still, I will read the inscription and reveal to the king what it means.
Silence deepens. The eyes in the room fix on him.
The king, the Most High, gave Nebuchadnezzar.
They got me on a few vitamins when I got out of hospital. I got a script. I needed a script for these vitamins. I don't know what they do, though.
Power, glory, and majesty. But when he became filled with pride, he was brought down. You, Belshazzar, knew all this, but you did not humble yourself. On the contrary, you rose up against the Lord of heaven. You brought the temple cups for this banquet. You praised gods who see nothing and hear nothing, but you didn't glorify the God who gives you breath.
Daniel points to the wall.
This is the message. Mele, God has numbered the days of your reign and determined the end. Tekel, you have been weighed and found wanting. Parsin, your kingdom will be...
Imagine getting told this, looking at the writing on the wall. You're the big hero of the whole city, and you're getting told this. Stunning stuff.
divided and given to the Medes and Persians.
The sentence is given. Daniel remains silent. A shiver runs down the spine of those present. Belshazzar, astonished, still keeps his word. He orders Daniel to be dressed in purple, places gold on his neck, and declares him the third most powerful in the kingdom. But it is already too late. That same night, while the king sleeps drunk and the city drowns in arrogance, Cyrus the Persian and Darius the Mede's troops invade Babylon through the Euphrates River waters, secretly diverted. Without resistance.
Now the Euphrates waters are dry again, ready for the next army to cross them.
The gates are taken. Belshazzar is killed, and Babylon falls before the new empire, the Medo-Persian Empire. Daniel, now at an advanced age, once again survives the fall of a kingdom. His name, Fidelity and wisdom are recognized even under the new administration. Darius, the Median, becomes king, and Daniel finds favor with him. The new king organizes the empire into 120 provinces, governed by satraps, and appoints 3 supervisors to coordinate them. Daniel is one of them.
Wow.
Quickly, he excels so much that Darius considers placing him over the whole kingdom. Envy sprouts like weeds among the other officials. They plot in secret, but find no fault in Daniel. No corruption, no negligence, no deviation.
We will never find anything against him except something related to his God's law.
In this way, they deceive the king with flattery.
O King Darius, live forever. We propose that you establish a royal decree. For 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or man except you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's pit.
The king, flattered, signs the law without knowing
Okay, Shawnee,
the real
God
target
bless.
of the conspiracy. Daniel hears the decree, but doesn't change anything in his routine. 3 times a day, as always, he kneels in his room with the windows open towards Jerusalem and prays to his God. Spies watch, run to the king with the accusation. Daniel.
Vegans have very, very clogged arteries from vegetables. I didn't know that.
One of the exiles from Judah did not obey the decree. He continues to pray 3 times a day. Dario is anxious. He tries to find a way to save him. But the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be revoked. In the evening, the king, saddened, orders that Daniel be taken away.
Your God, whom you serve continuously, will deliver you.
Daniel is thrown into the lion's den. A stone seals the entrance. The king stays up all night, without eating, without music, tormented. At dawn, he runs to the den. Daniel, servant of the living God, did your God save you from the lions? And a voice echoes from the depths.
O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, who shut the mouths of the lions. They did not hurt me, as I was found innocent before
Wow,
you,
that's
and
cool.
also before you, O king.
Dario is happy. He orders that Daniel be taken out without a scratch. And the men who accused him are thrown in instead. The lions devour them before they even hit the ground. Dario writes a new decree. Worship and revere the God of Daniel, for he is the living God who endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. Daniel's faith shines brighter than ever, but even he can't imagine that soon he will begin to see visions beyond his time. Apocalyptic revelations that span kingdoms and centuries.
When they do Daniel like this, they rarely show his future prophecies. In fact, this will be the first time I've seen him on TV.
The days of action and politics are behind us. Daniel is now in his old age.
How old?
The youthful features have given way to a wise and serene expression. Still respected in the high circles of the new empire, he dedicates his evenings to meditation, fasting, and prayer. But the peace surrounding him on the outside contrasts with what begins to happen in God begins to reveal visions. On a silent night, Daniel falls asleep in his chamber. The curtain sways with the wind. He wakes up with his heart racing. He has just witnessed something that human words can barely describe.
I had a vision during the night. I saw 4 winds of heaven stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts, different from one another, came up out of the sea.
The first was like a lion with eagle wings. As I watched, its wings were torn off. It was lifted from the ground and given a human mind. The second one seemed like a bear, risen on one side with 3 ribs between its teeth. It was told, "Get up and devour a lot of flesh." The third was like a leopard, with 4 wings on its back and 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. But the fourth was different, terrible, frightening, very strong. It had big iron teeth. It devoured and tore apart, and what was left, it trampled with its feet. It was different from all the previous ones, with 10 horns. While Daniel was watching the horns, another small one appeared, knocking down 3 of the first ones. It had eyes like a man's and a mouth that spoke arrogantly.
As I watched, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was flames of fire. A river of fire flowed before him. Thousands served him. Millions stood before him.
I like unleavened bread.
The books were opened. Daniel watched it.
I was never here. I like unleavened bread. It's very solid, like it fills your belly up well.
The scene with fear. The little horn continues to speak against the Almighty. But then
I saw someone like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given dominion, glory, and an eternal kingdom.
Daniel wakes up sweating, falls to his knees. His mind is troubled, his spirit distressed, but God has not finished. Another night, another vision, this time in the form of a symbol and conflict. He sees a ram with 2 tall horns, one higher than the other. It runs to the west, north, and south. No animal can resist. But then a goat appears from the west, with a notable horn between its eyes. It flies over the surface of the earth without touching the ground. With fury, it strikes the ram and destroys it. The goat grows in power, but its great horn breaks. In its place, 4 smaller horns appear, and from one of them appears a small horn, which grows powerfully.
It brings down the army of the heavens to the ground, casts down stars, desecrates the sanctuary, ends the daily sacrifice, and prospers even in rebellion.
Daniel hears a voice ask,
"How long will this vision last? How long will the sanctuary and the army be trampled?"
And the answer comes,
"Until 2,300 afternoons and mornings. Then the sanctuary will be cleansed."
Daniel wakes up again, exhausted. For days, he remains ill, shocked by what he saw. None of these visions are immediately clear, but the Spirit of God starts to give insight. Sometime later, during the reign of Cyrus, king of Persia, Daniel delves into the scriptures. He reads the writings of the prophet Jeremiah. He discovers that the desolation of Jerusalem would last 70 years. The revelation moves him deeply. He dresses in sackcloth, covers himself with ashes, and prays fervently.
"Lord, great and fearful God, who keeps the covenant and mercy with those who love you, we have sinned, committed iniquities, and been rebellious. We did not obey your servants, the prophets. Justice belongs to you, but to us the confusion of face. Forgive us, Lord. Incline your ears and hear."
While he prays, a shining figure appears before him. It's the angel Gabriel, sent with a divine answer.
"Daniel, I have come now to give you wisdom and understanding. From the beginning of your pleas, the order was given, and I came to inform you. You are very loved."
Gabriel reveals the prophecy of the 70 weeks.
70 weeks are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal both vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
Daniel listens closely. Gabriel goes on.
From the issuing of the order to restore Jerusalem until the Anointed One, the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Afterward, the Anointed One will be killed and will be no more. The city and the sanctuary will be destroyed. A people of a prince who is to come will come like a flood, and until the end, there will be war and desolations.
Daniel writes everything down, but his heart is restless. The numbers, the times, the events, everything points to something far beyond his era. He sees, still in vision, a time of distress that will come upon the people of God. But he also hears a promise.
I don't have Instagram.
Wise men will shine like the brightness of the firmament.
I don't have Instagram either.
And those who lead
I'm
men
out
to
after
righteousness
this, guys.
like the stars forever.
Once again, Daniel wakes up. The window in his room filters the pale light of dawn. He sits, wrapped in silence. His face bears the marks of someone who has seen the invisible, and his eyes have the depth of someone who has traveled through time. But one last vision still approaches, a cosmic battle between God's angels and the forces of evil. The final revelation that will end your prophetic calling and seal the words until the time of the end. Daniel is on the brink of the last great revelation of his life. Now elderly, he carries the weight of the...
I was never here. This is the second time I played their stuff. I played it about a week ago and they don't copyright. So I'm going to finish off my streams. I usually finish with Tony, but I'm going to get into this channel now, the Story Bibles.
Kingdoms he witnessed crumble, the kings he advised, and the visions that changed his soul. But now, what he will see transcends empires. God will carry him to the unseen battles, to the end time, where nations, kings, and powers intertwine under divine supervision. In the 3rd year of Cyrus's reign as king of Persia, Daniel begins fasting. 3 full weeks without wine, meat, or perfumes. The burden of prophecy consumes his days. On the 24th day, beside the Tigris River, he lifts his eyes and time seems to stop.
I saw a man dressed in linen, with a belt of pure gold from the region of Ufaz. His body was like beryl, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs shone like polished bronze, and his voice was like the roar of a crowd.
The men who were with him run away terrified. Daniel falls on his face to the ground without strength.
Yeah.
But the celestial being touches...
And I was never here. This channel's got a lot of content. So we got this to finish off with every stream. I used to do that with Now You See TV, but they deleted about 2,000 videos. I don't know why they did. They had some good videos in there.
...him and lifts him gently.
Daniel, man who is greatly loved, pay attention to the words I am going to say to you. From the first day you set your heart to seek understanding, your words were heard.
But then, the revelation. There was a war in the spiritual realm.
The prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me for 21 days, but Michael, one of the foremost princes, came to my aid.
The curtain of the invisible opens. Angels and powers engage in battles that shape the course of history. Daniel sees beyond the human armies, sees the forces operating behind the kingdoms. The celestial messenger continues. Now I return to fight against the Prince of Persia. Next will come the Prince of Greece. But first, I want to reveal to you what is written in the Book of Truth. And then begins the longest and most detailed prophecy ever given to a man. Daniel hears about kings of Persia, about the rise of a powerful king of Greece, Alexander the Great, whose early death will divide his empire into 4. Of these, 2 will stand out, the king of the south and the king of the north. Their wars, alliances, and betrayals unfold before Daniel like scenes from a future not yet lived.
The king of the north will exalt himself, desecrate the temple, abolish the daily sacrifice, and set up the abominable idol. He will flatter those who violate the covenant, but the people who know their God will show strength and resist.
The vision speeds up. Daniel sees persecutions, martyrs, false peace treaties, palace intrigues, and an arrogant ruler who will exalt himself above all gods.
He will exalt himself above everything that is called God. He will honor a strange god with gold, silver, and precious stones. He will act against powerful fortresses with a strange god.
But your downfall will be sudden.
It will come to an end, and there will be no one to help.
Daniel breathes with difficulty. The magnitude of what he sees exceeds his human capacity. But the revelation is not over. The messenger speaks of the end of times.
At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects the children of your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress, such as has never happened since the nation existed until that time. But at that time, your people will be delivered. Everyone who is found written in the book.
And then the whisper of eternity.
Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awaken, some to eternal life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. The wise will shine like the brightness of the sky. Those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever and ever.
Daniel trembles. His face
That AI of Daniel, you can see the face from when he was a kid. They've done that so well. You can see the kid Daniel's face in this old Daniel. Gee, they've done it well, haven't they?
Turns to the ground, but once again it is touched with tenderness. The messenger concludes.
Go, Daniel. These words are sealed and closed until the time of the end.
Daniel tries to understand everything he heard, but the answer is straightforward.
Follow your path. You will rest, and at the end of days you will rise to receive your inheritance.
Silence. The scene ends with Daniel in his chamber, looking at the Babylonian horizon, which no longer belongs to glorious kings. His eyes, now tired, gaze upon a distant time, a time when kings and kingdoms will fall, but the eternal rock will triumph. On the wall, the shadows of the sunset dance. Daniel kneels one last time, whispering,
Your kingdom is eternal, O Lord, and your dominion will have no end.
No, they're on Gabe's phone, my emails.
Thus ends the journey of the faithful prophet, of the exile who refused to defile himself, of the wise man who interpreted dreams and saw the invisible, of the servant who prayed 3 times a day, even under the threat of death.
Okay, that was really good. I'll do another one with Tony. Yeah, it only goes for 20 minutes, but I'll be out after this one, guys. Warning, if what they're saying is true, we must prepare. God rules, also known as Tony.
Well, we got a number of stories to get into as usual. We have, of course, something happening in the UK. We're going to get into that. We have someone getting arrested at an airport. You won't believe who it is. And also we have a number of other stories. We have something that's happening on a train that a lot of people have been talking about. It's been going viral. It has to do with some certain leaders in Europe. And actually, we got a ton of other stuff to get into, stuff going on here in America as well, and much more. Let's just start here. We have here shoppers at certain stores in the UK are finding and experiencing empty, of course, shelves. And this is all a result of a cyber hacking that happened 3 weeks ago now. So they've had a number of things happening almost every week over there in Europe. They had the hacking, I think, 3 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago now, they had their power failure in numerous countries. I think it was 4 of them. And actually, the UK was almost affected by that as well. And in the UK, I think like 2 days ago, they had their own power outage. And now we're seeing, of course, remember, this is what's so weird about this is I think it was 4 weeks ago, we had all these news stories coming out before it even happened. They were saying there's going to be empty shelves everywhere. And you remember everyone was talking about that, thinking this is...
Guys, are your shelves full there? Or are they empty like he's suggesting?
What was going to happen. And it never happened here, right? Everything was fine. But it did happen over in the UK, in some places in Europe. And it had to do with some sort of hacking. Now, what's really interesting about this, and it's like looking back, stepping back, a couple of years ago, we had something happen in Washington State that I talked about way back when it happened near Tacoma. And it's about 30 miles south of the Canadian border. And just across, directly north, China was doing, of course, some training in that area at the exact same time. And I mentioned at the time, it's kind of weird. They had 4 power substations in and around Tacoma, Washington that seemingly went offline. And I was like, well, it's kind of weird. This is happening just 30 miles north. Could that have any relation whatsoever? And I said, maybe that's some sort of, test. Are we going to see more of that in the future? And of course, then, fast forward to today, we see what's going on in the UK. Over the last 3 weeks, it makes me wonder if this is a bigger, of course, test. And why I say that is because I had a dream about 1.5 years ago, and almost all of it has come true up till the end part of the dream. At the end of the dream, I'm in a city, and all of a sudden it goes dark. There's no power. And I'm wondering if that is what, of course, is next. I
wonder what's going on with them Chinese ships, the delivery ships, the cargos, the ship cargos. Remember someone posted, I think it was you, Di, you posted something about Portland's ports being empty. I wonder if that's changed it with the Chinese. Are they coming back to America, guys?
Just curious. Maybe we'll see that in the next so many months. I think probably between now and November is when it would occur. This is just my guess based on the dream. It is kind of interesting because you have all these other stories that kind of relate. You have this one and they have empty shelves. Is that something we could be seeing? So they have the hacking, and then they have, after that, maybe the power, of course, going out. You got you got empty shelves. You can't get on the internet for months, potentially months. And here, this story here kind of tells you that Britain could face months long, power failures because of net zero. And this comes back to them going all green on their power grid, not using their coal-fired power plants or their nuclear power plants anymore, but rather just using wind and solar, where, of course, they can't handle spikes. Now, that's probably not what's going to happen here, if it was going to happen here, but maybe what would happen.
I've got about 3 months worth of food storage in the garage. Things like rice, pasta, flour, spam, spaghetti tins, baked bean tins. I've got a lot of food stored for about 3 months if our shelves go empty.
But here is similar to what happened 2 years ago over there near Tacoma, Washington. Just mysteriously, them getting hacked. I don't know. So this is kind of and that had to do with, of course, potentially China. We see this whole tariff deal going on with China, and it's actually going all in our favor currently with this 90-day pause. Excuse me. At any rate, so of course, We're going to get into a ton of stuff in this video. I just wanted to mention first, we have food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. 3 months worth for $4.97. You definitely want to get that if you have not already. Link is in the description. You never know what's next. This book here, The Lost Ways, how your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity, had a bit of cellar, do things around the house like they did in the good old days. Hundreds of pages illustrated. You definitely want that before it happens. At any rate, get the printed version, $37 plus shipping. And we got, like I said, a ton of stories to get into. Let's just play this clip here. This happened on a train. The leadership of England and France having some sorts of meeting on this train. Look what happens. So you can see that there. Oh, that's kind of interesting. What could that be?
Wow!
Paper. What is that?
Wow!
I'll turn off the music because I don't know if there's some copyright. Of course, he grabs it because he's like, I don't want anybody seeing this piece of paper in front of me. It's just a piece of paper. What else could it be, right? Just a dirty old.
Who are them?
Right? Don't think so, actually. I think it might be something else. And of course, they didn't want anybody to see it. This has been going viral for the last day or two.
Who was it, guys? I didn't see who it was. I did, but I don't know. Hang on.
Train, look what happens.
Oh, that's right. That's Macron and the English Prime Minister. And they're doing coke.
So you can see that there. Oh, that's kind of interesting. What could that be? Some sort of paper. What is that? I don't know. I turn off the music because I don't know if there's some copyright. Of course, he grabs it because he's like, I don't want anybody seeing this piece of paper in front of me.
Wow.
It's just a piece of paper. What else could it be, right? Just a dirty old napkin or something, right? Don't think so, actually. I think it might be something else. And of course, they didn't want anybody to see it. This has been going viral for the last day or two over on other social media platforms. And you can see that actually it's even went viral here on YouTube a little bit. Question is, what is that? What are they doing? Apparently everyone's into that. Apparently over there, I don't know. We had someone, a son of somebody, a president here also who's kind of into stuff like that not too long ago. At any rate, so there's that one. But we got a lot of stuff to get into, like I said. Let's start here. We have here inflation is completely down. Matter of fact, it's actually negative in the case of fast food. I'm not quite sure about supermarkets, but in the case of fast food, yes, it's negative. But at the same time, even though prices are going down, sales are in decline with McDonald's, Chipotle, and other places. Their sales slumped in Q1, even though inflation was down. What's going on here? Well, I think it's because people are still not making enough money to live off of. And we are starting to see jobs come back. And I'll show you that in a second here. But you can see that McDonald's is getting actually priced out of its own market that it dominated for decades. So it's interesting. I think what's going on here is we're seeing sort of the after effects of the last 4 years still going forward. As we wait for some of these new jobs to come in, it's very obvious these trade deals have been very good on our side. We've gotten in both cases, China and the UK, what exactly we wanted. 10% for us selling into their country now, which means we can now sell a number of things from our country, anything pretty much, into those two countries. And it's going to increase our GDP quite a bit. Some companies that manufacture here are going to be making a lot more of whatever they make. Just a good example would be cars. Cars could easily double for Ford in sales because of this alone, or GM or Stellantis, which would mean they would need double the workers. Double the workers means you will have an opportunity to work at one of those places. See what I mean? And this is the case with a lot of other companies as well that manufacture here in America. And we have also the fact that he put tariffs on certain things so they won't manufacture in Mexico. So now we're going to see a lot of factories coming back to America. Stellantis is opening two old ones and one new one. We see Apple bringing $500 billion back to America. Very interesting, of course. So this is some good news for the future. We already see growth with payroll, 177,000 in April. So that is one good sign right there. But of course, we got to wait it out for the rest to come in. It's going to take a little while. We have groceries actually down as well. Biggest drop in 5 years since his policies have taken effect. Of course, they all told us it'd be the exact opposite. As you can see, not the case at all. Now, interestingly, we also have apparently a number of companies all pulling back on, of course, Pride. Let's see if I can get on the screen better. That's not good enough. Let's try this. There we go. Mega brands pulling back millions from these events, of course, and we have here MasterCard, we have Comcast, Nissan, Pepsi, and others all pulling back their support for those causes. And we're also seeing gold bars rapidly selling out, which makes me kind of wonder if people are just wanting to buy gold more because they don't like what they're seeing with the dollar. Selling out at Costco, forcing retail giant to slap new purchase restrictions on customers. So, of course, that is something interesting. And if you're interested in buying some gold, silver, I have links below to AppMex. Go check it out. They have some deals going on right now. But the fact is, we can see with these tariffs, now the 90-day pause, we actually can sell into China for the first time ever with a 10% only on what we sell into that country. 1 billion new potential customers that we could sell to.
Try Woolworths free direct to boot when it's too rainy to get up.
Men, women, entire families.
Well, they still have 30% selling back into America, which shows that we have the winning hand. And the only reason that they didn't make a deal is because they don't want 30%. They don't want 10% too. So what's probably going to happen, and I've said this on my other channel, just like we saw with Canada, our president is going to make them give him concessions of whatever he wants to get it down to 10% for them. So he's probably going to ask them to do a bunch of things. I'm not sure what that would be, but something that would be, in our best interest, I guess, hopefully. Of course, also you have this here. Prescription drug prices are going to be going down a ton. They said 30 to 80% lower, but actually it might, from what I can tell, it could even be more than that in some cases. So you're going to be seeing prescription drug prices go down a ton because you just signed an EO. And it has a lot to do with these other countries making deals with these big companies to have very low prices, while at the same time they sell it to America for a much higher inflated price for the exact same item. So literally 10 times the price in some cases. So he made an EO, signed one, saying they can't do this anymore. So the prices are going to be going down on prescription drugs. So these are all good news things, but not everything's good news. But a lot of it is, actually. We do have this guy who got arrested, though. And this guy's a streamer. He's actually one of the biggest streamers in America. His name's Hassan. And of course, he's all about Palestine. Now, I honestly, I can understand, there's a lot of bad things going on there, but the way he promotes it or supports it is just ridiculous. He's literally supporting these organizations that shouldn't be supported. Check this.
Guys, Tony always glares. I can't help it.
So.
This isn't a music video, Hassan. Do you think the Houthis on Allah is doing what Houthi would do? I have no problem with the Houthis. Yeah, because I don't. What do you mean? Yeah, okay, there it is.
Right here. So obviously they're not a good organization, as you can see here. This guy's like promoting them all the time on his stream. He ends up getting arrested at an airport, and he's like complaining that he got arrested. I mean, seriously, bro, you're literally supporting these type of groups. And you're like, why am I getting arrested? I don't understand. I mean, I understand. I think the war should be ended, and I do think it's very unjust. And I think, it's unfortunate, but the fact is, you don't go and support that. That's ridiculous. Why are you supporting that? Right? Like, why are you supporting these organizations? It's insane. I think both sides got their problems. You know what I mean? We should just not have a war there, period. And we shouldn't be supporting it. We should be putting all our money over here. Well, not all, but a lot of it, because we've been spending it all overseas. We should be spending most all of it over here fixing our country.
And look how many homeless you got. And they're living in really terrible conditions. And they're wasting all this money.
And getting things on the right track here. That's kind of my thoughts on that. At any rate, so we also have some other things. This was kind of interesting. So our president just won 2 court cases, and these 2 court cases allow him to have access to Social Security data on what you would call illegals. Now, you might ask yourself, why would they have any data on them? I thought they were, illegal. Well, apparently, last year, our former president somehow allowed 3 million of them to get Social Security numbers. I wonder why he would do that. It's such a, oh, that's right. Something at the end of the year where we were trying to pick the next, of course, president. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but of course not. 3 million people. So, of course, now our president can access all that data and use it to his advantage to...
Okay, I'll never eat. Good night.
So these people shouldn't be here, obviously.
I'm only going for another 10 minutes and I'm gone anyway. So see you next time, I was never here. God bless.
All of them, but you know what I mean. So you got that whole thing. Also, this was interesting. China's 620 mile per hour maglev train breaks barriers, the future of travel. I saw this over on Jimmy Dore, and he's like, his co-host is like, oh, wow, that's such great technology. Like, she's never seen it before. This has been around for 40 years. 40 years. We have 0 of these trains in America. It's been around for 40 years. They were trying to build one in California. Somehow Newsom got nowhere in 20 years with tons of money to make one. I don't know what's going on there, but we have 0 of these in America. I think there's a couple places in Europe that have 40-year-old version, 40-year-old version. I'm not saying that. 40-year-old trains that are maglev. So that's kind of interesting. Why don't we have any here? China now has some already. They go faster than a plane, 620 miles per hour. That's insane.
Come on.
We should have that technology here. At any rate, of course, also in the next video, I'm going to be talking about this new Lady Gaga video that's been going viral. Very interesting. Something weird, of course, that happened at one of her concerts. Actually, there's a number of concerts I'm going to talk about. Some of the strange things going on. We're even talking about a number of other famous musicians as well. Things happening. We'll get into that in the next video. And they're saying maybe they're doing something more than just a concert. We'll get into that. But also wanted to mention, I'll talk probably also a little bit about the movie The Passion, where apparently a number of strange coincidences happened on the sets. I'll talk about that in the next video as well. If you guys are interested, we are offering 150 new shares or seats for investing in the game. We actually increased the overall profits for the entire group. Those that already invested will actually make more now than before with this higher percentage added. We only added 150 shares, but we actually increased the percentage, I think 13%. So that's a lot. More than the amount of shares, much more than the shares we added. So the shares are only 150 more at 400. If you're interested in investing in the game, link is in the description. If you've already invested, if you want to invest more, you'll actually make more profits now on the first time you did it and any new one you do. Link is in the description for it. We're actually getting near the end of creating the game. We'll have to do alpha beta testing and stuff like that. Marketing and more. At any rate, link is in the description if you are interested in investing in that. We also have, of course, a couple other stories I wanted to get into. We have here, apparently, Dr. Michael Brown. Investigation into him substantiates reports of misconduct, but for some reason, the church has already reinstated him. Mercy Culture Church celebrates Michael Brown as he returns to ministry. Following, of course, allegations, as you can see there on the screen. This is like, the latest minister to fall out of like 100 million of them that have fallen. No sarcasm, of course. I mean, literally every other one you see that's famous falls, it seems like. This is yet another one who has fallen, and for some reason, they just kind of swept it under the rug. There are legitimate investigation to it, legitimate information showing that he did do these things. So I'm going to do a video kind of going through all of them soon here. I'm going to go through a ton of them because there's a lot of new ones. And I kind of want to go into sort of scripture and, how it fits into the time we're in and prophecy and all that. And I'll get into that in a new video. I wanted to mention also about this new movie, Fantastic Four, coming out. Actually, the movie Thunderbolts apparently is doing okay. And the thing about it, it's not woke. It doesn't have any of that stuff in it, which is interesting. The Captain America recent and Thunderbolts apparently don't really have a lot of that stuff in them, although they weren't doing too well in the theaters, probably because people were just assuming it had it in them and they didn't want to go watch it. But there is a new movie coming out, Fantastic Four, which apparently does have it in it, exploring gender, of course, politics. They take this new actress here.
They do this gender stuff on Marvel. They all fail. The only good Marvel ones are the ones where they push the woke on you.
Who plays Sue Storm, and apparently change who she is from the comic, where in the comic, of course, she's sort of a beautiful girl that often she ends up needing to be saved, and she tends to be more...
Okay, guys, a minute to go. I'm out. God bless.
For the feminine aspect of the group, but in the case of the new movie, they turn her into a girl boss, apparently. And they do some other stuff as well, kind of, blurring the lines.